Welcome to the No Dick Pics podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Christina. So today we're just going to kind of get right into it. Today's going to be a little bit different. We're just going to do an episode purely on tips on dating after divorce, like the things that we learned that we kind of wish we had known going into dating right after we separated from our spouses. So I kind of like this from both of our perspective too, because like it's very different between men and women, like jumping back in. A lot of
Yeah,
things you can relate to each other, but a lot of it's very gender based. So I think it's good to have both of our perspective on this.
I don't think
Um,
you're ever ready either. There's
no.
always this window, like when do you do it? You do when you
Mm-hmm.
want to do it. Like, I think for most people, you're getting divorced for a reason. It's not good. You're not happy, you're emotionally, physically, your needs aren't getting met. So, like for me, like as soon as like we made the call that we're separating, I mean, the next day I was like, but I didn't know about any of the apps, so I
Mm-hmm.
was on some weird one called Elite Singles or something. It was really weird, but I just jumped in,
That's
and
one of the ones you get like random emails for, right? Like in
I
your
think
spam.
so.
Yeah.
So I just jumped in. I think you just wanted like oh my god, all those times. You hear all your married friends, oh man, I would crush it, and like but I wasn't aware of like the apps. I think you would just like you would go online, but no one's ever ready. I think that there's not a specific time. I just think, like I said, you're coming off of something that's emotionally draining, so you're gonna jump right in, and I jumped right in head first, and it was
Yeah.
fine. I mean, I think you learn from it. I think about a year in, I realized like, oh my god, this is what I need to do. And then
Mm-hmm.
after a bunch of relationships, I actually took like a good 6 month break with no apps or nothing, and just kind of focused on everything else that I needed to take care of in my life, and that kind of re-energized me. I think you learn each year
Oh
because I
yeah,
was like,
absolutely.
I think about 2 years in, I finally realized, I was kept finding these like toxic people and toxic
Mm-hmm.
relationships, and part of it was like, is it me? Like I wasn't sure, but I think I realized like at one point I was like, I'm all right. Like I was so scared of being alone, so I was just I put myself in these relationships that I shouldn't be in, and every time I tried to get out, I didn't want to get out because I didn't want to be alone, and it was nice, but at the end of the day, I was just like, I don't want to do this because it's just emotionally draining. So I finally realized, like, I'm fine if I'm alone the rest of my life. I got my kids, I got my family, my friends, like I got plenty of stuff to do. And once I kind of did that, it kind of like changed the perspective I have, and I was able to notice red flags right away. Like my therapist would always lay out like some guidelines, like is she coming off of a bad breakup, a bad relationship? How's her relationship with her family and her kids?
Mm-hmm.
And even though that sounds so minor, you'd be amazed. Like, oh wait, you don't talk to your mom? Check. Oh, you're estranged from your kids? Check. Or
Right.
like anyone that's been like, oh, I had a stalker or any toxic stuff in the past. Now, not all the time. Like you can't be
Right.
perfect, but toxic where it's like because a lot of these relationships I was in, they had ex boyfriends that were like calling them and wouldn't stop calling them, and it was really
Right.
weird. But it was like it was a pattern. There was only a couple
So
that
I
like
think
didn't
it was
have that. So
yeah, it's a little bit specific to like your experience. I think that list it's what you need. So I don't know that that's like, everyone cuz like some people are don't have a relationship with people for valid reasons.
right. It
And
doesn't mean it's good or
yeah.
bad. It's just she's like that's the type of like women that you've
Yeah,
been
you
kind of
were you
matching
were
with.
you were starting to develop a pattern of people that didn't work for you.
Right.
And it's like, well, when you meet people and they have these things on this list, that's typically not worked out well for you. So it's just kind of something that you learn as you go. But going back to like when you're ready, because I think that's where you start when it comes to dating after ending a very major relationship, marriage, whatever it is that you're getting out of. Um, Everyone is different. There's all these articles, all these rules, like you're supposed to wait this many months, this many years, whatever it is. You're ready when you're ready. You know when you're ready. If you're just curious about dating, date. Like, I think the difference of when you're ready is your intent. So it's the difference between dating for fun and dating with intent. And you'll see a lot of people talk about that, like in groups on like dating sites, things like that. Is dating with intent. Dating with intent is the intent for a serious relationship ending in potentially marriage or whatever. Dating for fun is just to meet people. You're just kind of open to the idea of meeting people and seeing where it goes.
I
And
think
I
that's where
think
you're most.
you
I
have to
mean, I
start
think
there.
most men are at that point.
Yeah.
The first couple of years, I didn't want to. I didn't want to like a serious relationship or anything in the beginning.
Yeah.
I just wanted to see what was out there. What it's like. What I mean, my perception of people, and because I would always ask my therapist, like, because I was dating a certain person. I mean, I'll come out and say it. I was pretty much dating non-white women, but I didn't do it on like I didn't set my filters that way. And my therapist is like, you're just dating someone opposite from who you were married to. So it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of intriguing. It was kind of like, but I just it's
That wasn't a conscious thing. You were just doing it.
right. I didn't like
Oh,
my
okay. I thought it was a conscious thing that you had
no.
decided.
It just happened to work out that way. I don't know, but I think that's the thing is like going into it. I think so. You're like I said, everyone is damaged in what
Mm-hmm.
way, right? And so you jump in, and some people have this perception, like because you come out of a shitty marriage, regardless if it was like both parties agreed to it or whatever, you still coming out of something that you put work into, and you're
Yeah.
just like, and everyone has this fairy tale, like, oh, I'm gonna meet my my and it doesn't work out that way. Sometimes people meet on the first time. Sometimes it works, but in reality, it doesn't. And you've got to date, and you got to go
Right.
through
That's
the
the
things.
exception.
Right.
You'll hear stories of I met my husband a month after my divorce and we're happy and we're perfect. That's the exception. That's not normal. That's not what happens for most people. I think everyone wants that. You want the first person you meet to be your person forever. It's not going to be the first person you meet. Like 99.9% of the time, it's not the first person you meet.
The first
Um,
person I met, I think 6 months after we broke up, 6 or 8 months later, she got remarried. I was like,
yeah,
wow, she really
yeah.
wanted that
She had a
relationship.
goal. Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, ew.
Yeah, but I think when you go into dating after divorce or after separation or something like that, you're trying to replace that and jump back into something like what you had before is like that's what kind of all you know, so it's what you want to do, but it's not what's going to happen. And so I think setting your expectations more realistically to where you're like, I'm going to date for fun. I'm going to meet some weird people. I'm going to meet some great people. We'll see what happens. And I think if you go into that with that mindset instead of I'm going to find my next husband, I'm going to find my next wife, it's a little bit more realistic. You're going to be less disappointed. You're not going to get your heart broken after 8 days like
But
me.
also, it also depends how long you were married.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like, so our age group, like between 40 and 50,
Mm-hmm.
when we were married, the apps weren't a thing,
Right.
and now you're divorced, and now it's all apps, and now you're like, okay, how do I, and the problem is other people will judge you, and you
Yeah.
have to say fuck them. Do what you want to do. If you want to be like, hey, I'm gonna like for 6 months, I'm just gonna worry about myself. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna do my things for me, and then eventually maybe something happens. Great. Some people, the apps aren't for everyone.
You just kind of learn as you go, which sucks because you
But
get
in the
your
beginning,
feelings
like
hurt.
I was just jumping
Yeah.
around. I would jump on different apps and stuff, and like what because I mean, to me, it was kind of fun because I love like talking to people, and like
Mm-hmm.
I would always say like, am I just in love with the chase? Because I really enjoyed it and
I
it was
think you
fun.
were.
Most marriages, when they're failing, there's usually not sex involved, so you're kind
Mm-hmm.
of like in a dry spell, and you're like, I mean, my first one, I'm just like, I just want to get laid. Like
Yeah.
I like literally, I was so close to just paying someone and just get it over with, get a
Yeah.
hooker in a hotel, and but then I'm thinking, okay,
Sex worker.
I'm sorry, sex worker. I wish like I think OnlyFans was. I don't think that was prevalent then. It started to,
I
and
think
then
it
I'm
got
thinking like that's all
bigger
I
over the
need is I
pandemic,
get busted
but
for
yeah.
prostitution while I'm going through a
No.
divorce with you
Custody
know
stuff. Yeah.
custody stuff. I was like, no.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about dating apps because there's
I feel like
obviously
I'm a pro.
yeah, there's a few different ways, to meet people. One is obviously out in the wild and like our last guest mentioned like join groups, join like take classes, do things that are you're interested in and you'll meet people that have similar interests as you in those kind of activities. But if that's not your thing and you want to meet people in a more like, I don't know, they're out there to date because, you join a class, you don't know that person's single or wants to date. That's not the intent of that class. But if you're on a dating app, everyone is on there with an intent to meet someone. So for me, when I first joined apps, the reason, well, first of all, I was terrified of them because you hear all these stories and I'm like, oh my God, I think it's really easy to be scared of dating, scared of the apps. But I did it because I was like, when people match with me, they're interested in me. I know they want to get to know me or potentially date me. A lot of it's bullshit, but like they're making their intent known, which is different from meeting someone in a class or something. You don't know if they're interested in dating you or not. I think when you do it, you have to have an open mind. You have to know that you're going to meet some weird fucking people. You're going to read some crazy shit. You're going to get some you're gonna see the craziest shit you've ever seen. People are gonna say
You're
wild
gonna get
things to
dick
you.
pics.
You're gonna get dick pics, but you are gonna get things and hear things that you never expected before, and it's gonna be like, oh my God, this is wild. And that's where you hear all those stories. It's weeding out that bullshit and being able to see the real people. And for me, the way I chose people, which honestly it ended up working out for me. But like when I was initially picking people, the first guy that I met, 8 Day, I told a story about him. I chose him because he seemed non threatening. I was like, first of all, he's tall, he's got a beard. It's my thing. And he seemed like a big teddy bear. Like he seemed like this super nice, chill dude who wasn't gonna hurt my feelings. Like he wasn't the most attractive man, but he wasn't like ugly or anything. So he's like a mid. That's a thing that women do is like, they get mad that they let this like mid-level guy hurt their feelings. Because guys, I think, and you can give me your perspective on this, guys get a newfound confidence, I think, when women are responding to them and they're able to like meet attractive women and hook up with them. I think that's what happened with 8 Day, at least. I think I gave him confidence he didn't have, and he's like, well, what
Oh
else can
yeah.
I find?
You know what else helps our confidence? As soon as we sleep with someone, then
Mm
our brain thinks like, well, if I got her,
hmm. Mm
man,
hmm.
what else can I get? Because that's
Right.
how my brain worked in the beginning. Because I was like, man,
Well, yeah,
I mean,
because you haven't done that
my
in so
buddies even said
long.
it. Like, I remember one of my friends at work was like, "Man, you're pulling some nice women. Like, what are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm just being myself." Like,
Yeah.
and it gives you confidence. But then all of a sudden, then you get the confidence, and then something happens, and it's just they'll shoot you down. Like, it's
Oh
like, all
yeah,
right,
it's a roller coaster. Another thing I'll say to add to like dating after divorce, get a therapist. Like I think being in therapy, and I know there's people feel whatever they feel about therapy, but I think having a therapist, especially going through a divorce, I think it's good to have that because you're going through something life changing that has turned your world upside down. So I think that alone you need. A, I
yeah.
don't.
I had
I
a
think we all
I,
need
I
a
had the
therapist.
therapist that we used to kind of
Hmm.
make sure know that we wanted to get a divorce. But then COVID hit, and then I couldn't get like I tried the online stuff, but it didn't work for me. And then when I went through the one breakup, I was like, I really need to talk to someone, and I found
Yeah,
someone locally, and it was perfect. And then
it
she kind of
really
helped
helps
me.
to have a therapist to
Yeah,
talk to, right?
even right now, I think like this is the healthiest relationship I've ever been in.
Hmm.
Um, and like everything kind of in my life is kind of like lining up. Like I still have stress and stuff, but this is the times like, do I still need a therapist? And just talking to her, and it helps. And
Yeah.
now it's every like 3 weeks for me. It used to be like every week, and then we went every 2 weeks. Now it's every 3 weeks. But it's like you just know you have that sounding board. And I know when you tell people you're in therapy, like women love that.
Hmm. They do. I'm telling you, that's the biggest green flag because a lot of guys have a lot of issues that they haven't worked through, and it comes out as anger and it comes out as frustration and stuff like that because they just haven't worked through it. And I think having a therapist helps you see what you need to work on, see where mistakes were made, not just by you, but by like people in your life and like how that affects you. It helps you work through these things. And for me, whenever I met a guy who was in therapy, I was like, thank God. Like that's what
I wish I would
these
have had therapy right when right after I got divorced. It would have been
yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I
And
mean, like I
so if
said,
you're
the
listening,
online
get a
that
therapist.
didn't do it for me.
Yeah. So therapy helps immensely. It helps you because you're gonna go through some shit and it just helps you like ground yourself and realize where you're at. My therapist is great at being like, how do you ground yourself? How do you keep yourself from getting swept up into something? Because that's something I do a lot, like very easily. I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna get married, like. So she helps ground me, be like, let's be real for a second, and I'm like, oh, because sometimes your friends don't do that for you. Sometimes your friends are just really
But you
supportive
need to
and
have
don't want to hurt
realistic
your feelings,
expectations when you go
right?
into it. Like, just say like, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I want a date right now," and I know that's not a
Right.
popular thing. It's funny because this comment I'm going to say is completely wrong now because we met and got together. But I was noticing anyone going through a separation that hadn't been divorced, that was kind of it. That was kind of like choppy waters for me because
Yeah.
it's very emotional and you have
Mm-hmm.
people involved and they're not sure what they wanted either. I felt like the more people that have been divorced a couple years, I was kind of like having better matches with. But then when I met
Yeah.
you, you were in the process, but it was like completely different. I don't know, it just felt different. But I mean, and you'll find different things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, one of them I matched with. I think the reason she matched with me was because she was literally just got separated, so she was kind of like bouncing ideas off me, and she's like, "Oh wow, it worked for you," and so and sometimes that it was the wrong match, but you
Mm-hmm.
just have someone you can talk to. So it's just
Yeah, that's
go into it.
honestly that's
Yeah.
one of the biggest things about dating and about joining these apps and meeting people is just like all the conversations that you have, and you feel like I feel like a lot of people felt like they couldn't talk to anyone about certain things for a long time, and you just like end up opening up to these people. And so you got to be careful about that because some people you shouldn't open
I
up
wish I
to.
had someone to go to like sound off on when I
Yeah.
first got divorced. We didn't really make it like official. We just kind of like it just like we didn't post anything on Facebook or
Oh, we didn't
anything.
either. We
We
didn't announce
just
it because
people
like we're not
people close to
celebrities.
us knew. I still
Yeah.
get messages like hey, are you guys, I'm like, yeah, I've been divorced for a while. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, so but
I
yeah,
think see- being seen with me because like we're public on Facebook, Um, I
well,
think
you're
that
public on
probably,
Facebook.
I think people are like, oh, hey, you're seeing someone. You're not with your ex husband anymore. I'm like, no.
Who's
Yeah,
that
who has a
hottie?
problem with that? You are very cute.
I
And
was
people
referring to
say
you
that.
because I don't think people call men
No.
hottie. Do they? No.
Yeah. Sometimes. I don't know. Depends on the person.
I've gotten some. So people at work knew that like I was dating and stuff, and so I think it was a picture when we saw Jarrett, the stand-up comedian,
Mm-hmm.
and George is like, "Dude, what are you doing? Fucking just stay with her." I'm like, "No, no, we're seeing each other. Don't worry, we're good." He's like, "Oh, okay, okay." And then my mom, like when she first
Mm-hmm.
met you, texted me and something like, don't screw this one up." And by the way, she is beautiful. Like,
Oh,
yeah. So I've gotten some like positive, like I mean, no negative feedback, nothing but
that's good.
positive.
I'm
So
I'm
yeah,
glad.
I
Yeah.
know that people at work were just like, "Hold on to that. What are you doing?" I'm like, "No, no, no. We're good."
Yeah. You don't have a choice, so
Because
it's fine.
I would sometimes talk about, I would tell certain people like my dating stories and stuff, and people were,
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's another thing. You become everyone's like
ex-
entertainment.
especially the married ones because they love
Right.
it.
They love
Because
to hear your stories. They love to hear everything about like the crazy fucking people you meet. So back to apps, just to start from the beginning. When you're building a profile, there's a lot of different things people will give you tips on and how to do it. The things I think work best because obviously I met Max. I mean he doesn't read profiles, so this is not working on him, but
I read
you
some. I don't know. It depends the mood I was in.
just be honest, first of all. Be honest with your pictures. Be honest about your age. Be honest about your location. Be honest. You don't have to share too much. And that's a tip that Rachel shared last season. Don't overshare. Don't write an entire biography because you have to have stuff to talk about on your dates. But give them enough to like just know a little bit about you and then leave the rest for conversation
And
on
don't
dates and
lie.
stuff.
I mean, if
Yeah.
we've heard anything, just the last 4 episodes, 4 or 5 episodes,
It's
like
the
don't
biggest
lie.
problem for
The
people.
hype.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Don't
so,
use
and it's very difficult for women because we're very self-critical of ourselves. So you want to post a heavily filtered picture, and like that's not gonna get you the response that you
because the
want
guy's gonna be
usually.
like, you look nothing like.
Right.
Or if you use like I was like when I first started, I used older pictures and I told him like, listen, this is a picture from a couple years ago. Like, do you have any
Mm-hmm.
picture? I'm like, I don't, and guys don't. And it's funny the fish picture with Chrissy saying like now that kind of makes
We're
sense.
putting this episode before her, so we could explain that.
Oh, but because the people don't like fish photos,
Mm-hmm.
But that she's like, what if that's the only time the guy's like
Right.
out doing stuff?
A lot
I
of
don't
men
I don't
don't have
under,
pictures of them by themselves, and
I,
so
under,
a
I
fish picture
understand the
might be the
gym
only one they have.
photos. I understand the gym photos for the females because
Mm-hmm.
everyone like every guy likes it. But I mean, like I guess maybe it's different. But I'm old school too, so I'm just like I'm not a selfie person either. I mean, I don't
Mm-hmm.
really like to take pictures, but I mean, if I'm going to take a picture somewhere, it's going to be like if I'm on vacation or doing something
Mm-hmm.
fun. But
Yeah. So I think.
I understand people read the bios, but the
Mm-hmm.
first impression is that picture, and it
Oh
is,
yeah,
and people
absolutely.
like
The
that's what we
picture,
look at,
the age,
yeah.
location. That's what I looked at first. Oh,
Because
I look at job too.
I got smart with people because they were always doing face pictures, and I'm like, I wonder what she looks like. Now I understood because people would always be like, "Do you have a full, a shot of a full length?" And I'm like,
Yeah.
"What's a full?" But yeah, but I mean,
So
it's important.
it
But
is
I've been on dates where it's like, wow, she looks nothing like her, but
right. You can take great pictures, but post ones of you that look like you. It's hard to post a full body picture for some women because you're self conscious or you don't like the way you look. But I think
same with
it's important.
guys,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's important just so you don't come across a guy who's like, "Oh, you don't look anything like what I thought you did," and that was always my fear was that someone was going to be surprised, and then be mean to me about it, and that never happened to me. Like it doesn't. I literally never. I've never had an issue with it, and I was very self conscious about that going into dating as someone who is not a super skinny girl. I was like, people are gonna not be like, they're not gonna like me because of my size, and I had no problem at all.
A tip that I learned easy was that Google reverse image search.
Yeah,
You can find out if
you
the
can find if
people
it's
were
like stock
taking
photos
photo.
or
Yeah,
model, but yeah.
yeah.
So we were talking to go back to that. I'm in a group. I can't say the name of it, but I'm in a group of women who talk to see if they can, if when they meet someone on an app, is this person safe? What do you know
Yeah, is he
about this person?
married? You know,
Are they married? Is anyone else dating him? Um, and so it kind of sounds like the name of the group, but I can't say the name of the group. But if you want to know if you're a woman who's interested in what I'm talking about and you don't already know, which most women do, DM me. I'll let you know. Um, I think it's a good group for all women to join because there are a lot of married dudes out there, a lot, and there's a lot of dudes dating like 6 women at the same time, and it sucks. It absolutely sucks, but it's nice to know that in advance so you don't waste your time. But I was on that group and someone had posted a picture of this guy, and they're like, "Hey, I'm meeting up with this guy. Does anyone know him? Have any information?" The dude was a famous wrestler.
oh, you showed me, and I'm like, hey,
Yeah,
that looks. I mean, that looks like Austin Theory.
right. And I think someone said that in a comment, like, I think that's a wrestler. So I showed you, I'm like, and you're like, yeah. And so we go to the guy's Instagram, the actual wrestlers. It's not, the guy said his name was something totally different. It wasn't the wrestler. He said he was some totally different guy. And he was using this wrestler's like pictures from Instagram as his pictures, like catfishing people. So that shit happens. So let's talk safety real quick because we're kind of on that topic anyway. Um, I know men don't really take it as seriously as women. I feel like they probably should because there are some crazy people
I
out there.
do.
I would say get a Google Voice number. Your phone number is connected to so much more than you realize. It's connected to your social media. It's connected to your Snapchat. It's connected to TikTok, things like that. People can find out a lot about you just from your phone number alone, and like you don't even think about that when you give it to someone. It just gives you one like layer of safety. So if you do meet someone that you do want to cut off and you don't want to talk to them again, you can. And it's not like
Yeah,
they're gonna find you on social media and stuff. Like you can always find someone, but it just makes it a little bit harder. Um, a second thing, and we've talked about this a few times, and this is a big thing. When you go on a first date with someone, first of all, before you go on a date, I would always say talk to them on the phone. Maybe have a FaceTime. Not everyone wants to FaceTime, but just like,
I've done a couple FaceTimes, and it was
yeah,
like, whoa. And I
right.
know my reaction, and I think, and someone even called me out, like, yeah, we did a FaceTime. Your reaction, like, I was like, oh no, I was just busy at work because like one of them was just like literally using someone else's photos. Because when I
Yeah.
FaceTime them, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. A FaceTime's not always something that people are going to be open to, but they should be.
I never liked FaceTime just because I was so self conscious about myself.
Yeah.
But I mean,
But
yeah,
you're so
it's important.
cute.
But I mean, you just go with your gut. Like if you're like, man,
Hmm.
something just doesn't feel right,
Yes.
something
You
doesn't
have
add up.
instincts for a reason. So
Yeah,
listen to them. And you're going to be like, oh, am I overreacting? No, you're not. Listen to your instincts. If you feel weird about something, listen to it and stick with it because, like, your instincts are going off for a reason. Another thing, and this is like what we've talked about before, meet on your first date. Like, meet somewhere. Don't have the person pick you up. Go to a place where you can
or
both
go to
meet.
their house.
Yeah, don't go to their house. Um, Even if they invite you, like Max, it's not safe. So, also, that's kind of like not safe on your end because what if you meet a crazy person and they know where you live and where your kids are and stuff? That's, you just gotta,
Yeah,
you don't know who you're gonna meet. So,
that's why I think we talk about. I think some people are against coffee dates. Coffee dates are nice because you're kind of
I
checking
love
them
a
out and
coffee
seeing.
date.
Yeah,
And people shit on them because they're like they're low effort. No, a coffee date, I don't know, it's the first date, but it's almost like a screening. You're
if they
gonna go
say low
meet the
effort, then
person.
they want those are the women or the men, whoever they
Right.
want like the 5 star because it's like fine, I can take you to a 5 star restaurant. You're not going to get that every date,
Right.
like especially
I
if you're a
think
parent. You're like,
if your intention is to meet someone and get to know them and see if you're legitimately interested in dating them, a coffee date is one of the best first dates you can go on because it's low key. You can sit, you can have this coffee, you can chat, you can talk for 3 hours, you can talk for 5 minutes. If you sit down and the person sits across from you and you're like, no, like the
or
minute you
coffee
meet
and a
them,
walk. I did a walk date once, and that was pretty
yeah.
cool. We met after
So
work and just like went on a walk.
yeah, it gives you a chance to like legitimately have a conversation that's not really like distracted by a lot of other things. You're not having a waiter or waitress come up to you every few minutes to be like, are you guys doing okay or whatever. You're just sitting at a coffee shop having a conversation. And if you're not into it, it's a very easy out. It's like okay, it was so great to meet you, and then be done with it. And it's not that big of a deal because it's just a coffee date. So I love a coffee date for a first date. I know a lot of people don't. I think it is the best way to see, do I want to go on a real date with this person?
Or get a drink. I've done that a few times. You just
Right.
grab a drink.
Drink works too. Something very low key that is has an easy out because if you the worst thing you can do is go on a date with someone. This happened to me in high school. This is how far back I'm going. You're going on a date with someone and they pick you up, which was different because it was high school and I actually knew the person. Um, I'm trapped. I can't leave now because this person picked me up. It was terrible. It was like the poor dude tried so hard, but I did not want to be there. And I didn't have an out and we're stuck at dinner. And so I'm sitting there at dinner, we order. I'm like, this is going to be at least an hour that we're sitting here and that I'm stuck talking to this person that I don't want to spend time with because I don't like him. you know, when you're on a coffee date or a drink or something really low key, you can have that one drink and be like, you know what? I'm not feeling this. You can just be honest, which is the best way to be. Not everyone's going to react well, but like, I think the best policy is to be honest because at least if you don't want to talk to them again and you lead them on, they're going to keep bugging you. If you go, I'm not really feeling this, it's nice to meet you, but I'm sorry, it's just not for me. At least they know and they're not going to keep bugging you, hopefully, if they're not a crazy person. So I love a informal, super low key first date because it's it's just you're getting the vibe, you're getting the initial do I want to see this person again before you're committing a couple hours to them. So I love that for a first date. But yeah, definitely meet. Like drive there yourself and have that person drive there themselves and meet so you can leave whenever you want to. If it's a situation where you're like, I don't feel safe, I don't want to be here with this person, you can just go and you're not stuck there like waiting for them to drive you home. So that's a huge thing there. I'm also like I love Rachel's perspective on this. Be careful about what you say about your kids. Be careful about what you post about them in your profile. Definitely don't post pictures of your children. Like that's
No,
a big
that's a red
yeah.
flag. I don't understand those people that put photos of their children. That's a turn on. Like I will. I'm like,
Yeah.
nope.
Because there's a lot of
That's
creeps out there and they're looking
but
at pictures
why?
of your
Like, there's
kids.
no reason. Yeah.
Right. I would say the age range they're in. Like she was very like vague about it. Some people are open about saying the ages. I think I don't know. It depends on who you are and how safe you feel, but you don't have to say the gender. You don't have to say their exact age. You can just say the age range. Definitely don't post pictures of them. Don't share pictures of them with that person right away. Like definitely like wait on that. Hold off the kid part. You can be like, I'm a parent. It affects my schedule in this way, but leave the details of your children, whatever, out until you are more comfortable with that person. Um, that's also part of like don't let them pick you up so they know where you live and where your kids are. you know.
Yeah.
Um, what else is there? Let someone know where you're going. Tell a friend. Share your location.
Like if you're going to Mexico, let someone
Yeah,
know where you're going.
share your location with someone that you trust and be like, this is the person. I would do that for every date. I would always screenshot the profiles and I would send it to my friends and be like, this is who I'm going on a date with. Here's my location.
If I
If you don't hear from
disappear,
me, and I always had my friends are very protective of me, and so they'd be like, "Hey, check in after the date." So if I didn't, they'd be like, "Hey, what's up?" They would start texting me. So it's good to have people who are watching out for you, who know where you're at and what you're doing. So like it's I don't think it's common that someone vanishes from a date, but just in case you find the one psychopath, it's just good for safety purposes to have someone know where you're at and what you're doing.
I think this goes back to like beginning when first date or dating and stuff. I also realize like people are dating multiple people, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what dating is. I feel like we've talked about this before, where it's like everyone wants like long term or short, like whatever it is, but just know like you're talking to someone, they're probably talking to other people,
Oh,
and
absolutely, and I
you
think that's
get to
fair.
feel like you have a connection in the beginning, and then it fades. That usually means okay, they're either bored with you or they're moving on with someone else. Or I mean, there sometimes people are genuinely busy. That's another thing too. You're not going to be the number one priority for everyone, and that's where you
No.
kind of have to. That's what it took me a while, and you would get so you get so emotionally attached, and that's where I think the apps are toxic because you're like waiting. You come back from work and you're like, ooh, I wonder who messaged me, and I even had people that were like, "Why didn't you message me all day?" I'm like, "I've been at work." So, I
So
mean,
you're gonna meet
you
people.
just have to go. I think you have to go in with low expectations,
Yes.
like low expectations, and then just trust your gut. Do what you think is best. If you don't like, if you truly are not sure about someone, then ask them. Be like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like I said, like one of my things that I did is the five questions, like the stuck on the island thing.
Mm-hmm.
That just showed me if they're creative or not. Because I want someone that can kind of think on their own and be creative, even though it's just a little test. But it's like I knew like the people that gave me vague answers, like it just eventually
Yeah.
just
Well, I
faltered
think putting
away.
people on the spot and being like, "Hey, here's an icebreaker question," like it kind of helps you see
People
how they
loved it.
react.
Oh, I love
Yeah.
that. Oh, that's great.
Well, and the way someone reacts to it, not even just the answers, but the way they react to it tells you a lot about a person. So it's just like little things that you'll pick up that you'll see like how to get to know people. But I like what you're saying. Like when you are talking to someone, you can't assume that you're exclusive from the start because you just started talking. And for women especially, I feel like, and I know if you listen to the show, I had a roster. I think everyone should, honestly. I know some people are like, that's not for me. I think when you first start dating, my biggest mistake with the first guy I met was I went all in because I went from being married to dating and I didn't know what that meant. Like, I didn't know what it meant to date. I was like, I am ready to be someone's wife again. And it's like, no, 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 no. Stop. Just date and have fun and be casual and like get to know someone. You don't have to jump to the future so
And be
quickly.
honest. Be like, like
Yeah,
after the day, be like, I had a good time. Be like,
right. But
she's like,
also
I'm
trust
seeing other
trust
guys too.
yourself. Yeah, trust your own opinions about people because there are a lot of times where you're like, I didn't like this, but I'm gonna look past it. Don't look past it. Be honest. Be like, I didn't like that. Be honest with yourself, really. But I had a roster after that. I learned I'm like the way for me specifically, and a lot of other people who are like me who get too excited about a person is to have more than one person, and that doesn't mean go on dates with multiple people. For me, at least, you absolutely can, especially if you're not exclusive with someone. But for me, it's I will be talking. Not will be. I don't haven't done this in over a year. I'm not talking to people right now. but
When we're not
when
supposed to
I
be talking. Oh,
so funny. I love these
Yeah.
jokes. um, but I would be talking to multiple people, and like, there's a point where you have to like cut it off and be like, I can't talk to like 20 people. That's too many people. So find out what is a good amount for you, and talk to a handful of people. And some are gonna fall off, some are gonna ghost you, some are gonna like just leave the app suddenly or whatever. So like, I always had a few that I was talking to and then getting to know, um, and it keeps you from getting too excited about one person.
And then if
And
one drops off, it's like, hey, because you
yeah,
have
you're like,
like a
okay, whatever.
if you're talking like at one point, I remember I was talking to like probably on I think I was on Hinge. I was talking to three women, and you have
Hmm.
kind of a rating system. Like I really like this one. This one's okay.
Yeah, you have a front
And you just
runner.
go through. But they always. I told people like they always work their way out. It doesn't matter if you're talking about 4 or 5 people. Eventually, within a week, like the bad ones will just kind of go away. They will
Okay,
stop messaging you, and then
I
you just kind of.
tried that one time, and this is why you have to be careful with how many you match with. Um, I I overdid it. It was a night I was talking to like three people, and none of them were available. And the one of the things about apps is like you get a little addicted to the attention. And so I was bored one night. No one was messaging me back. They were all busy living their lives or whatever. And I'm like, I'm bored. So I went on and I overmatched. I was like, I'll match with like 15 people, and like half of them are going to fall off or not respond or something. Like, I was going through my people that had already matched with me, but there was always a handful of times when someone would match with you, you would match back, and then nothing would happen. So like, I'm like, I'll do like 15. They all started talking to me, including the like three that I was already talking to, and none of them dropped off for like a week. And I'm like, I cannot. This is too many people. Like, I can't handle this. So there's a few I dropped right away because I was like, no, I don't actually like you. But at one point, I was actively talking to like 10 dudes. So that's when I had my spreadsheet,
That's
and I'm
crazy.
like, I this is too many people, and it's really hard to do. I juggled it really well because I'm organized and I remember things. I can remember people and stuff like that. But a lot of people aren't that organized, so it's hard to do. But I think it's helpful to have a little bit of a roster, a little bit of a group that you can, choose from. So if one person drops off that you're excited about, it's not the end of the world. You have another. But once you actively start dating and going on dates with people, for me, that's when I only see one person at a time. I would struggle to date multiple people, like actually go on multiple dates with more than one person.
I'd be going on, maybe seeing someone going on dates for, a couple of weeks or something, and they're like, "Well, I
Hmm.
have another date," and I'm like, "That's fine." I mean,
Yeah.
that's
When you're
doable,
not
and
exclusive, that's fine. And like, I mean, I kind of did that when I met you. Like, I had two dates in one day, and I had another one I was supposed to talk to later that day, and I didn't. So sorry, Greg the ghost. But he was my number one when I had that roster, and he fucked it up. So, and I'm glad because he's not for me.
but your rating and perception might be completely different than someone else, and that's the thing.
Yes.
I mean, I don't. To me, it was like if I was talking to a couple of people, you just had to remember. But the nice thing about like some of these apps, you can go back and look at the conversation. Okay,
Yeah.
and some just like drop off after about a day. They're like, "All right," and some people are there to hook up. People are there for a
Mm-hmm.
relationship. People are just there to be there, and it,
Mm-hmm.
it is what it is. But
Some people are there
you just
just to
have
talk
to
to
like
people.
at the end of the day, you just do you like what you want to do and go from there. People are gonna judge and stuff. I mean, you know,
You're
it
gonna
is what
see
it
what
is.
works for you and what doesn't, and it only comes with like experiencing it. So like, take our tips for what they are, but it's kind of like a you're gonna learn on your way. But the things that I wish I had known are basically what I'm sharing. The number one thing that I wish I had known going into this, and I've talked about it a few times, is the difference between how men and women fall in love. And I'm very much a relationship person, obviously. But like, I wanted a relationship from the start, and not everyone else does. And I had this perception that, you sleep with someone, you have that intimate connection with someone, they're going to fall in love with you, especially if it's a great like connection. That's not how men fall in love, and I did not know that until last year. Men do not fall in love through sex. So having sex with a man is not going to make him like you any more than he did
Sex
before.
to a man is like eating pizza. We enjoy it.
But like, it blew my mind to learn that like it's not going to make them like you more. I'm like, really? You think it would? No, it doesn't. Men fall in love through connection, through getting to know someone, through, shared experiences and stuff, not through physical intimacy. And I did not know that.
At the end of the day, like you just have to. I think you have to go in with a mindset like I always be like, this is probably not going to work, but I'll see where it goes, and then go from there.
That's so negative.
No, but you have to because
Yeah, no, I get it.
you just don't know who you're talking to and what, and sometimes in the beginning it's great, like the first 3 weeks, 4 weeks is great,
Hmm.
and you think this is something good, and then boom, it's just like this the switch gets turned off, or and I've noticed too. You go on a couple dates and it's good, and then it falls off. And I'm just like, yeah, she's probably talking to someone else, and
Yeah,
you
it
just know that,
happens.
and you find different things, and you feel like you can tell when something's off. Like I'm really good with people.
Hmm.
I can tell, and it's about trends, right? So if they're very vocal in the beginning, and then all of a sudden it falls off. Everyone has their phone next to them. So it's bullshit. It's like,
Right.
and sometimes I'd be like, just be honest with me. She's like, I'm just not feeling this anymore. I met someone
Yeah.
else. I was like, that's all you have to say,
Exactly.
because I feel
It's
like
it's
you're
the
gonna,
kindest thing you
yeah,
can do. It's just to be honest with someone. And sometimes it's like I don't want to be mean, and it's like you're not. You're being meaner by not being honest. I had guys message me like I'm connecting with someone else more. Like so I'm
yeah,
going to pursue that and I'm like that's fine. Great. Thank you so much for telling me. You're going to go through a lot of things. You're going to learn a lot about yourself and it's you're going to learn what your deal breakers are and what you're looking for in a person and how you find that through apps is just like you learn as you go, which sucks sometimes. You're gonna
like
get your
when we
feelings
broke
hurt.
up, I went back on the apps and
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't 100% into it because I kept getting dropped off by people, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm what like I complained about, like not being fully invested, because I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, I don't think I was completely into it, but I just wanted to kind of see what was out there, and it was, but I wasn't like 100%, and I felt like this is just not, this isn't fair to them. Like I was like,
Because once you have steak,
well,
you
I'm the
can't
steak,
go
so what
back
are
to
you?
spam.
You're like
I'm
sea
I'm
bass or a nice ahi tuna.
sure
So it's just,
something
yeah,
high end.
and no, and the truth is, like you say, to be honest, no one's honest. Everyone's,
Yes.
I
So that's something I wanted to talk about before I forgot.
just
Like
don't lie about your height. That's what we're
don't lie
doing.
about your height. One of the best tips I've ever heard is everyone is full of shit when you first meet them.
Yeah,
Don't believe what they're saying, even if they're great people. Don't believe what they're saying, believe what they do. Believe their actions, not their words, because even you are going to be full of shit when you first meet someone because you're putting on, even if you don't mean to, you are putting on an act to be the best version of yourself,
right.
to say all the right things. And so someone might say something and you may not respond in the way that you would typically respond because you're like, I'm just gonna be a different person right now, because you're being trying to be the best version of yourself. And so that's we all do it. We all do this like front where we're just trying to be as appealing as we can be and we're full of shit. All of us. It doesn't mean everything you're saying is a lie. It just means you're gonna see a side of a person that might not be their true self a month later. And so believe what they do, believe their actions, believe the way they show up for you and the way they interact with you in person. The things they're saying sound great, but they're just words.
Yeah,
So, yeah, I love that advice. Everyone's full of shit in the beginning. It's amazing. It's such a good reality check.
like I said, it should be a disclaimer. Everyone is damaged on this app,
Yes.
because they are. You're damaged in any way, and then you've got, married people and not sure, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, like they're on the edge of separation, but they're still not, and it's just
No,
it's a
that's a
lot.
no.
Yeah,
I didn't ever date anyone who was separated, which is hilarious because I was not fully divorced either. But I was like, we don't need two newbies here. Like, that's I don't need someone who's also like new at this and going through all this stuff. I want to date someone
right.
who has been separated for a few years or divorced for a few years and kind of has figured this out more because I don't know what I'm doing. So like I don't need someone else who doesn't know what they're doing. Um but for me, I was also in a very different mindset mindset than I think a lot of people are at the stage I was in. And it was because of therapy. And it was because I had been working on myself for
Yeah.
so long that I was in a different headspace than someone typically is. And I think that's why it worked with us. But I think typically dating while you're still separated is tricky. And it's really
Right.
at that point, I think you should be more focused on dating for fun. As someone who did it, I think you should be more focused on fun than finding your next husband.
I've come around on this where I feel like at first I was like, I don't think you can meet people organically, but I think you can. Like there are groups like so the all the single parent groups on Facebook. There's like running clubs and there's like
Hmm.
sports clubs and like I know there's like pickleball's huge. There's all these like pickleball clubs and stuff. I've seen like pickleball for singles. You can meet organically. It's tougher and you're still. But the thing with when you're meeting organically, you don't know anything about them. So I mean I guess
You
that's
don't
good
know
too.
if they want to date.
Right,
You
you don't know
know,
if they're
yeah,
available, but because
yeah.
I ran into someone that flirted with me a
Hmm.
few years ago in a gym, and I told the story, and then when I went up to her, she was like shocked. So I think like some people just like that flirty, like
Yeah, they're not. They
flirtation.
don't want to actually meet someone. They're just
And
like,
then when you get single, when you're single again, then you kind of understand the different types of flirtation. Because
hmm,
you would always think like, oh yeah, she's into me, but you realize some people are just very flirtatious, and
yeah.
doesn't mean they're into you. But
Some people mistake
you,
being nice as flirting too, because
but
like
then
I'm nice
sometimes
to people, but I'm not necessarily meaning to flirt. You know?
you're so naive that like they're just hitting on you
Yes.
and you're like,
Yeah.
oh okay, and people are like, dude, she's it's a Starbucks. No, just being nice.
Well, and
Like
I think you have to be careful of what you're putting out there. I have a lot of friends that have been single for a long time and they're just so jaded. And they go into apps and they're just like, nope, nope, no, no, no. And it's like, it's hard to meet someone when you're closed off. And
right.
people can read that when they start talking to you and you're just shut down because you're like, what fucking bullshit am I gonna hear now? You know? People can read that. That's if you go into it with that attitude, they're gonna be like, yeah, okay, no. But when it comes to like having a positive outlook, it's tough. And I know like people are gonna come at me and be like, "You're one to talk," because I did meet you very quickly into dating, and I went through some shit though. I went through some crazy breakups that came out of nowhere that shocked me, and it could have made me very jaded and made me really turn me off of dating. But I'm just naturally a very optimistic person, and I think that's what helped me because I was like, I'm gonna find my person. Like, I know I'm going to. So, like, if it's not this person, maybe it's the next. And so I
I
would
bet
try to go into it being more like open to it and being like, I know I just got my feelings hurt, but like maybe this one will work out and like, and not, and go into it with like the same positivity I went into everything else with, which is hard to do after you've had shit happen to you over and over and over
in
and
about two or
over.
3 years I was then to the point like I didn't think I was gonna meet someone. I thought I'd
Mm
meet some good people and I met some friends out of it. But I was fine with it. Once I accepted like I'm okay with not meeting someone,
hmm. Mm hmm.
it was fine. Like I said, I mean, not to be negative, but I always would feel like if I'm a little bit negative, then something good happens. It's like, ooh, it's positive, kind of that reverse psychology on you.
Mm hmm.
But I mean, I was just going like I went in blind. I was like,
But you
I don't
didn't go
know.
into dates with that negative energy, though. You didn't
No,
bring
no,
it like,
no.
all
Every
right,
date I was positive, and I
yeah.
didn't really have bad dates.
Yeah.
But
So, I mean, it is what you make of it. There's obviously a lot. We could talk about this for hours. We could have an entire season on just tips on dating after divorce. But I think those are the first things that really came to mind. And one of the biggest things that I wish I had followed earlier on was if someone has something that bothers you about them and you're like, but they're nice, don't like overlook the things
yeah,
that bother you. Because there were things that bothered me about 8 Day. There were things that bothered me about Christmas Guy. And I just kind of like made excuses for it because I was like, but they like me. No, like
because
if
you
something
haven't because
bothers you,
coming off that divorce or separation, you
mm-hmm,
weren't you weren't loved anymore. Like it's the truth. And
yeah,
then the first couple people that show you some like effort, some effect, you're like, oh my god, and that's it
yeah.
feels good.
So
It
even though there's
feels
things that
good.
bothered me about it, I had icks with them and I ignored it. And I was like, it's fine. It's not. I would have saved myself a lot of heartache if I was honest with myself in those relationships, being like, you know what? This really bothers me. There were a lot of things with 8 Day that I was like, I shouldn't have gone on that first date because I didn't want to. I was like, this is not for me. And it ended up being situation where I regret everything with. I mean, I'm glad I went through it because I learned so much from it. But like, I regret every action I took in that first person I matched with because I made all these mistakes that I wish I hadn't. But I think the biggest part about being ready, and like I said, everyone's different, and you can date when you're not ready because you can just be dating for fun.
I did.
Yeah, I think being able to be honest with yourself and being comfortable with being alone is so important. And I feel like I'm just naturally fine with being alone because I'm an only child.
I
But
wasn't
after
honest
being
with
married,
myself. Yeah.
yeah, being married, I was never alone. And so like it was hard to accept that, but like I'm always fine being alone. Like I don't mind it cuz again, only child, I was left alone a lot in my life.
Latchkey
So,
kid.
yeah. So I have a natural okayness with being alone that a lot of people don't have, but don't enter a relationship like Max did a few times just because you want some companionship. If you don't like the person, if there's all these
Right. When
things
you're
about this
driving
person that
home
you
and you're
don't
just
like.
like, I gotta break up with her, I gotta break up with
Right.
her. And then by the time I get home, like, oh no, it's all good, it's good. And it's like, no, just you should have go
Hmm.
with your instinct.
And again, I've said this before on other episodes. You didn't go through a divorce. You didn't go through all that pain, all that money, all that heartache just to get into something else where you're making excuses for someone that you didn't really want to be with. Like, don't settle when you don't have to because you just got out of a situation where you're with someone that it didn't work out for whatever reason. Don't put yourself in another situation where you're with someone that you know is not the right person for you just because you don't want to be alone because you just did that. So why
I'll give
do it
you a
again?
tip. When you're going out with someone and an ex boyfriend or an ex something calls them during the date,
Hmm.
get up and leave because I wish I would have done that. That happened twice
Oh my God.
on dates. Like an ex was texting them or
Hmm.
calling them,
If they're
and
on
I'm
their
just
phone during the date, go fuck yourself.
you're dating, you end a relationship,
Hmm.
and then you'd be like, okay, I should step back, not like that night go back on the dating apps because I did that too, and it's just like you just
Me too,
it's
but
a
it worked out
constant,
for me.
but it's just constant. It was just like
Yeah.
it's just so it was so toxic, but you can't. It's like almost like it's addictive. Like you can't just like oh
Yeah.
I can't
You get
So
addicted to the attention, and if you know that and you're aware of it, I think it helps to be like, do I really like him or do I like the attention? And that's a thing where you start falling for the words and like making excuses for things that you don't like about a person because you're believing the bullshit that they're giving you. If there's actions that they're taking that you're like, I don't like that, listen to the actions first.
but at
It's
the
gonna
end of the
help you in
day,
the end.
we are showing you that you can meet someone that
Yeah.
like you can. It's just like oh, when you least expect it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
things are going to happen for a reason, and I think sometimes you have to go through the craziness just to kind of find something good
Right.
at the end.
And I
And
think
some
a lot of people will say, like, you have to heal, you have to do all these things. Sometimes you can heal with someone.
we should wrap this
Yeah.
up because we're rambling.
We will be back next week with another great episode. And we might record something from Arizona because we're going to Arizona in a couple weeks. We might. We might be having too much fun. But we're trying to record a few episodes so we can have some backlog so we don't go a week without posting something. So you should have an episode every week. If you don't, we tried our best. But be sure to follow us on social media on Instagram at no dpics pod, everywhere else at no dick pics pod, and then make sure you rate and review, subscribe, all those things. Got anything
Yeah,
else? Say something. People are listening to you, not
to
watching.
be the man, you've got to beat the man. Woo!
All right, bye.